That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we're going to go through and do the same exact thing that we did yesterday. We are going to be looking at the difference in our dynasty rankings and dynasty market value, but instead we're going to be doing it at the wide receiver position. I was going to do running backs, but honestly, receiver, there are a couple guys in this list that I think are so damn overvalued that I want to get this video out here today. I don't want to wait any longer. And of course, before we get into it, please go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, let me know how stupid I am, and subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And also, if you want to find all our Dynasty rankings, whether that's our startup rankings or our rookie rankings, or if you just want to join an awesome community of Dynasty Fantasy Football players and at the same time get into Dynasty leagues with us, get an in-depth podcast breaking down your Dynasty team, yada, 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 you can find that all over there on Patreon, but I'm sure you know that by now. And what you may not know is how we are looking at dynasty value in this video is we are going to be looking at DLF ADP. Of course, this is not a promotion, yada, yada, yada. It's just an ADP set that is different than what you are going to see with mock drafts on this channel, because I mean, all those mock drafts that we do on this channel, those mock drafts are within our Patreon community. So everybody in our Patreon community has access to our dynasty rankings. I mean, we're all talking very often, so I think that it's going to be a little bit of a different draft board than what you would see in a regular dynasty league. I mean, just think of Trey Lance, Cam Akers, the perfect examples. I mean, if you hop into a flock league, those guys are going to be going significantly earlier than in a regular league. So we're going to be looking at DLF data for this video. And let's just dive into this, and let's lead it off with the wide receiver that I'd imagine is going to fall down DLF rankings, but this is going to be CeeDee Lamb. Now, right now, I mean, you're looking at our Patreon rankings and seeing CeeDee Lamb as the wide receiver 7. Now, obviously, I mean, a lot of people have a sour taste of CeeDee Lamb in their mouths based on that playoff performance, and I'm honestly surprised, to say the least, on where CeeDee Lamb is, I don't want to say ranked, but his average draft position according to DLF, which at the time of this recording, he is sitting there as the wide receiver 3. He is the wide receiver 3 ahead of guys like AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf. And I actually recently made a video talking about why CeeDee Lamb fell down our rankings to number 7. And I was kind of recapping that fall with just the disappointing season he had overall. Also, to go along with this, we know that Amari Cooper is most likely going to be with this team next year, as well as we'd imagine they're going to be re-signing Michael Gallup. So the immediate jump in target share, it's a little unclear. However, we did say that CeeDee Lamb could be an intriguing buy low candidate dependent on the price point in your dynasty league, based on the understanding that he is still an incredibly young wide receiver that we want to believe is going to continue to improve in talent through the course of his NFL career. As you look at him right now, he's 22 years old. We've already talked about this. Younger than Jalen Waddle, younger than Kadarius Toney, younger than Devonta Smith. I mean, younger than a ton of rookies in last year's draft class. I mean, CeeDee Lamb still has the profile where he can be a top end wide receiver in dynasty. But my issue with him is just the comparison that we have to other top options. AJ Brown's going to be the perfect example. If you pull up our dynasty rankings, we have AJ Brown as our wide receiver 3 compared to CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver 7. And they're in 2 separate tiers. Of course, all our rankings are based on tiers as well. And with AJ Brown, this is a wide receiver that is also incredibly young, was drafted in 2019. But the difference between AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb is, A, we've never seen the elite top tier production from CeeDee Lamb. Everybody in the dynasty community, including myself, we want to believe that CeeDee Lamb can get there. However, at this point of his NFL career, he has not shown the ability to produce like a player like AJ Brown. And then also projecting forward with that Tennessee Titans offense versus the Dallas Cowboys offense. With AJ Brown, this is a wide receiver that in 2022 can reasonably expect to possibly get 30% of his team's targets. It's in the range of outcomes. For AJ Brown, I'm not saying from a points per game perspective, but from a target share perspective, to get up to Devontae Adams, to get up to Cooper Kupp, to get up to Michael Thomas in those elite recent history, seasons that we have. Whereas with CeeDee Lamb, that's just simply not going to be possible in the offense that he's playing in based on Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. Of course, Michael Gallup's a free agent, but based on the injury, I'd imagine he's coming back. It's not going to be possible for CeeDee Lamb to see that same type of target share. So I don't want to go out there and say sell on CeeDee Lamb. I think that if you're playing in a flock league, based on what I'm seeing the market value of CeeDee Lamb be significantly lower than the wide receiver 3 overall. Now, I don't know if this is just me being my own little bubble. I don't know if the flock leagues are smarter or just skewed. I don't know what it is, but CeeDee Lamb's not an elite level wide receiver in Dynasty. I mean, here his ADP is 5.5. Not wide receiver 5. No, his ADP. I can't get there. We're going to have CeeDee Lamb more so as the second round startup pick instead. And now going over to our next wide receiver, we are going to have another player that has recently fallen down a significant amount in our Dynasty rankings. Is DK Metcalf. I know y'all are tired of hearing me talk about CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, as we've made a ton of videos about them as of late. I promise you I'll move on from them very quickly. And as I've said before, I think the perfect explanation on why I was overvaluing DK Metcalf halfway through this season, while I was still reluctant to move DK Metcalf down significantly in our Dynasty rankings at the beginning of this offseason, is, I mean, that lizard brain that you have. I mean, obviously, we all know at this point, it came from evolution. We came from little tiny creature. We have the dumbest animal instincts. And I think we see that picture of DK Metcalf. I think we see how damn fast DK Metcalf is. We all remember the clip of him chasing down the interception. And we all know DK Metcalf big, DK Metcalf fast, DK Metcalf me draft high. Like that is the animal brain back in the back of our mind telling us we need to go out there and get DK Metcalf. Whereas in reality, I mean, we already went over this. I don't want to focus in on it too much. DK Metcalf's a wide receiver that already is kind of near his ceiling with his touchdown rate, which we know that's going to be the volatile thing that you see from a year-to-year standpoint. And this past season, he scored a touchdown on almost 10% of his targets. That's not going to be able to maintain at that high of a level. Also, we're probably going to get Russell Wilson. I don't want to say guaranteed to move out of Seattle, but there's at least a chance. There's at least a chance that if Russell Wilson leaves Seattle, DK Metcalf's getting a significant downgrade at the quarterback position, because I'll tell you right now, they're not trading away Russell Wilson and getting an upgrade at quarterback. That's simply not happening. And if you look at just his points per game this past year, he was the wide receiver 30. So if he kind of hit, I don't want to say his ceiling from a touchdown rate perspective, but was close to it, and there's a chance that he gets a downgrade at quarterback as well, I think we have to move him down our ranking significantly. Now, if you're looking at where we have DK Metcalf, I mean, compared to some of our other players in that range, we have him in the same tier as Deontay Johnson, Stephon Diggs, and T. Higgins. Right now, I'm having an internal battle. I've already told y'all to please leave a comment on the other video. Who do you prefer, DK Metcalf or T. Higgins, and tell me why. But we had to move Deontay Johnson ahead of DK Metcalf, because if you just look at the target shares of the wide receivers, if you look at how they project going forward, I think you have to have Deontay Johnson, same draft class. I know Deontay Johnson definitely older, but still, nonetheless, I mean, in a similar range for their age and for their situations going forward. And Deontay Johnson has been a lot more productive over the past 2 seasons. Okay, so now let's go to someone that I loved in rookie drafts. I was very surprised to see this player so damn high in DLF ADP, Elijah Moore. Now, Elijah Moore, I thought I was neutral on Elijah Moore. I thought I was high on Elijah Moore. I was definitely extremely high on Elijah Moore before the NFL Combine last year. I'm sorry, Pro Day, whatever the hell happened last year. I mean, before everybody went out and kind of realized how undervalued Elijah Moore was in Dynasty based on that production profile he had coming out of Ole Miss. So I kind of thought we were always in line with Elijah Moore. But if you're looking at my Dynasty rankings right now, I have Elijah Moore as the wide receiver 27. I have him in the same tier as Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas, and Brandon Ayuk. And if you look at where he is in DLF, he's the wide receiver 19. He's ahead of someone like Calvin Ridley. What? I can't understand it. Okay. Now, if you're looking at Zach Wilson, of course, Zach Wilson had a better end of the season than the beginning of the year. Now, I will say that's not too impressive, because let me pull this up with what we had Zach Wilson his rookie season. We've already gone through this. This is why we were saying, I mean, after the first month of the season, to go through and sell Zach Wilson, sell Justin Fields, sell Trevor Lawrence, based on the historical hit rates of quarterbacks that start like this their rookie years. I mean, at the end of the season, he ended with an adjusted yards per pass attempt at 5.3. That is horrendous. At this point, you would be happy if Zach Wilson turned into Andy Dalton. And I know a lot of people are going to hate me saying that. If Zach Wilson had the same career as Andy Dalton, that would be a good thing from here. So you are capped with the quarterback play unless we see a massive change, which we rarely do unless your name is Josh Allen. And I'll tell you right now, there's a long list of quarterbacks that had this poor of an adjusted yards per pass in their rookie season that flamed out, that failed. And there's a list of one quarterback that didn't in Josh Allen. Zach Wilson, don't bet on an outlier. Don't bet him to turn into Josh Allen. To go along with this team could invest in the wide receiver position this offseason. They could also decide to take a wide receiver at, I believe they have pick 10. I mean, I have seen consistently Drake London, Garrett Wilson mocked to this team, and it would make a lot of sense. I mean, this is a team that most likely is going to be missing out on Jamison Crowder. This is a team that you want to give your young, I don't want to say rookie quarterback, your young second-year quarterback the ability to succeed with no excuses whatsoever. So you want to surround him with top wide receiver talent. So with Elijah Moore, trust me, I love the profile coming out of Ole Miss. I love the wide receiver overall. But like, what exactly did he do his rookie season in a very bad offense for us to get this excited about him? Like, if I'm pulling up the Elijah Moore game log here, Elijah Moore, if we're just going yards throughout the entire season, -3, 47, 22, 0, 13, 67, 84, 44, 141, 46, and 77. Calvin Ridley has sleptwalk to better years in a 4-game stretch than Elijah Moore had throughout his entire rookie season. I know Calvin Ridley, 27, 26 years old at this point, but still, I don't want to be paying this much of a premium on age at the wide receiver position in particular. I mean, if this is running back, hell yes. The second that we get a flash from someone like Javonte Williams, I'm going to pay a premium on that player, their rookie year, and value them over the veteran option based on the runway of the running back position and how they historically fall off once you get to 27 years old. However, when you have those veteran wide receivers making it into their 30s, when you have guys producing at 30, 31, 32, I mean, Emmanuel Sanders, 33 this past season producing, I'm going to be fine going instead, pivoting off to some of these other veteran options. Like we have Elijah Moore and Keenan Allen, literally both at ADP of 41 overall. Calvin Ridley behind Elijah Moore. You got Michael Pittman behind Elijah Moore. You have Mike Evans behind Elijah Moore. You have a decent amount of guys. You got Amari Cooper, DeAndre. You have a lot of names that I would actually take over Elijah Moore, even though I kind of consider myself as an Elijah Moore fan, but I guess I was just wrong though. Now going over to our next wide receiver, this is also something I simply did not understand. You got Chase Claypole sitting here at wide receiver 24. Now, if you're looking at my dynasty rankings, you're going to see that we have Chase Claypole down there at wide receiver 31. We have him in the same tier as guys like Darnell Mooney, Rashad Bateman, Amara St. Brown, and Jerry Jeudy. They're all very similar wide receivers, at least from a dynasty perspective, in my opinion. However, if you're looking at DLF ADP, you're going to get Chase Claypole, ahead of Amara St. Brown, ahead of Brandon Ayuk, ahead of Hollywood Brown. I have Hollywood Brown drastically in front of Chase Claypole. You have Chase Claypole ahead of Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins. Going back to just like what we were saying with Elijah Moore, maybe this is probably what it is. I remember back when I first started playing Dynasty a long time ago, and I was advocating in 2015, the year after you had the blow-up Odell Beckham Jr. rookie season performance, that he was the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. Everybody was telling me, Mason, you idiot. It's Antonio Brown. Mason, you idiot. It's Julio Jones. You're an ageist. You're an ageist. You're an ageist. You care too much about age. And I got that hammered into me for year after year, season after season after season. Now maybe I'm the old man. Maybe I'm the old man in the scenario saying, hey, don't give up on these wide receivers too early. Amari Cooper, 27 years old. We've seen that long track record of Amari Cooper, while yes, being incredibly inconsistent, still being a part of a dominant NFL offense, having a consistent role, and putting up a better year pretty much every single season over the past 5 than Chase Claypool has ever come close to. Now, I will be the first person to admit, if we're talking touchdown rates and we're talking opportunity in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, Chase Claypool will have a better season this upcoming year than what he just did. He was the wide receiver 35 on a per game basis this past season. And if you're looking at this, he was very unlucky. Comparing his second year to his rookie season, the numbers in terms of the targets, the receptions, the yards, they're not that different, but What was drastically different is you actually had Chase Claypole, who you would assume has a higher touchdown rate than league average. I mean, this is a 6'4" wide receiver, 227 pounds. So you'd imagine that his touchdown rate is going to be higher than league average. I mean, it was unsustainable his rookie season. He scored 10 touchdowns. I mean, 2 of those were rushing, but still off of only 57 receptions. Now, if you compare this to what you did this past season, there's a reason to be optimistic that you could get Chase Claypole coming out and seeing a little bit of a better year this upcoming year. I mean, he actually had only 1 touchdown off of 51 receptions. If you look at the yards, if you look at the receptions, you look at the targets, everything's very similar to his rookie season. However, you just take the massive step back with your touchdowns, but we know touchdowns are volatile season to season to season, and you mainly want to be ignoring them. And here with Claypole, my issue is, is he was the wide receiver 35. I mean, he averaged 13 points per game. The next best guy was Marvin Jones. And after that, you had Jarvis Landry on the list. So if he's scoring in a similar range of Marvin Jones and Jarvis Landry, and there are question marks around his quarterback in the long term, I think a lot of them are overblown, just given the fact that Ben Roethlisberger was already a really bad quarterback this past season, so it's not like he can get much worse. I'm still going to be lower on Chase Claypole compared to consensus. Now, going over to our next option, I legitimately laughed out loud when I saw this. I don't know what the rest of the Dynasty community is doing. I did not understand this at all, because if you go over and you are a part of the flock on Patreon, you kind of realize that nobody in our leagues, nobody in our circles are valuing him this highly. Allen Robinson. I've talked about Allen Robinson a ton. I don't want to be focusing in on him too much more. But Allen Robinson right now going off the board is wide receiver 31. This is ahead of Tyler Lockett, Michael Thomas, Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney. Let me make sure I'm looking at this was from 2022 in January. Yeah, ahead of, I'd imagine when we get the February update with ADP, he's going to be a little bit further down than this. But in my opinion, he needs to fall like a rock. Instead of wide receiver 31, we have him 14 spots behind that. We have him wide receiver 46. Instead of being in the same range as Rashad Bateman, Tyler Lockett, Michael Thomas, we have him in the same range as Rondale Moore, Tyler Boyd, Christian Kirk, Gabriel Davis. That's the tier that we have Allen Robinson in. I don't want to focus in too much on it because we just talked Allen Robinson, but this is a wide receiver that was just outproduced by Darnell Mooney. Yes, he's a free agent. Yes, he's going to go into a better... We don't know if he's going to go into a better situation. I'm still selling him the second that he signs. I liked Allen Robinson last offseason. I was wrong. I'm willing to say I was wrong, and I'm willing to move on from it. Now, our next wide receiver on this list is going to be our wide receiver 49 in Dynasty. Yet in ADP, he's the wide receiver 35. He's going ahead of Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, Brandon Cooks, Hunter Renfrow, Rondale Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster. He's going ahead of Kadarius Toney. He's going, rounds ahead of Kadarius Toney, rounds ahead of Odell, rounds ahead of Robert Woods. Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton has always been overvalued in Dynasty. You don't know, some of the earliest hate that I ever got on this channel was in 2019, and I would just go out there and talk about why Cortland Sutton was just an overrated asset. And you know what? Now that I'm looking at this list more in depth, we got Chase Claypole, we got DK Metcalf, we got Cortland Sutton. We got some big athletic wide receivers. I think maybe just the lizard brain is too strong with people right now. They're not willing to look at the production. They're not willing to look at the context. Instead, they would rather look at the players on the field and be excited about their shiny brand new toys. Because here, if you're looking at Cortland Sutton, we've already broken this down in our Denver wide receivers video. But in 2021, if you're looking at the total numbers, very similar to Jerry Jeudy. They're almost identical. With Cortland Sutton, had about 5.7 targets a game and about 45 receiving yards a game. That is almost identical to Jerry Jeudy. But remember, Cortland Sutton played a significant portion of the season with no Jerry Jeudy in the offense. Whereas Jerry Jeudy, every game that he played, Cortland Sutton was a part of. So if we go through and if we remove the games that Jerry Jeudy missed and Cortland Sutton was able to go out there and be his own wide receiver, those numbers for Cortland Sutton, you're not going to believe me, but it's a 10-game sample. And I know you're not going to believe me, but feel free to do the math on your own. He averaged 3.5 targets a game, 3.8, but who's counting? And less than 20 receiving yards a game. He averaged less than 20 receiving yards a game in a 10-game sample with Jerry Jeudy this past year. Going back to when he was a top 3 round startup pick, he was still coming off a season where he was the wide receiver 3 in Dynasty, but people overhyped him because he is a big, strong, fast, physical wide receiver. I think we kind of are seeing a trend here. Maybe these players, the Dynasty value is a little bit too high compared to what we are getting with the actual production behind them. Cortland Sutton's an immediate sell for me. As we said, I have him as my wide receiver 49. In this ADP set, Cortland Sutton is sticking around wide receiver 34. I'm selling him for Mike Williams. I'm selling him for Darnell Mooney. Selling him for Brandon Cooks. Selling him for Hunter Renfrow. Selling him for Rondell Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, Odell Beckham Jr., Robert Woods, Christian Kirk, Michael Gallup, hell, Van Jefferson. Give me all those players over Cortland Sutton. Now, of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast or video, whatever the hell this is. I really hope you got something from it. Please go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, let me know why I am so stupid. Subscribe to the channel if you want to join an awesome community of Dynasty Fantasy Football players. You can do that over there on Patreon. The links can be found in the description of this video. And all the ADP data that we looked at is from DLF, Dynasty League Football. And of course, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. And yeah, hope to see you with the video tomorrow.